Well, it's sometimes fun to be woken up.
Was there really a major breakthrough in fusion? Not really. Here are the facts. Okay, so as far as I understood it, this is a breakthrough, yes, but also at the same time, the way to try and generate power through this is
U.S.
still
scientists
requires
making
a lot of power on the other on the laser side. There's two elements here that I mean, here I'll watch it with
Up
this.
to a lot of buzz about some kind of a topic in regards to physics or some kind of a discovery that I've been meaning to cover again for quite a long time now. We're talking about the recent announcement about the breakthrough in fusion, a way of generating power by combining two different atoms and creating something heavier, releasing a lot of energy in the process. Or basically the way that various stars, including our sun, generate energy, and something that we know works really well. But how can you possibly achieve this on planet Earth? Well, approximately a year and a half ago, we've actually already discussed pretty much most of this from the same lab. The National Ignition Facility in the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory was able to achieve a major breakthrough in fusion by being able to release approximately 70% of energy that was inputted into a relatively complex laser system. And now, just a year and a half later, they've beat these records, officially achieving even more. But even though every major news source has already covered the story so far, pretty much most of them did not mention the important parts. I actually wanted to mostly focus this video on the challenges and things that were slightly misrepresented in a lot of these articles. In other words, fusion itself is still really far from being an actual reality, and even though the lab reported this as the official achievement of ignition, or essentially being able to produce more energy than is being put into the system, even the lab director herself has already mentioned that this is not entirely true. So let's discuss these details, let's talk a little bit more about what was achieved and what's actually happening, and also discuss about the potential future of the technology. But let's actually start with a very brief summary that I've covered in the previous video that you can check out in the description about the type of research that's being done on fusion. There are actually quite a lot of different types of research and lots of different devices that are being...
Dude, I can't do this. I try so fucking hard to watch science YouTube and my brain fucking shuts off, dude. God, I hate myself. I hate myself. It's my fault. It's so hard for me to fucking watch science YouTube, dude. I can't. No, I know they're cool. I know they're cool. Like, I want to watch it. It just like hurts my fucking soul when I try to watch this shit and I can't. Like, I don't know why it's like easier for me to fucking consume it from like NPR. You know what I mean? Fuck, I'm like clicking random shit.
Has been a pipe dream for decades. Always 20 years away, never 19. It's easy to get jaded about this technology and write it off as impossible, especially when nuclear fission already exists and is being underutilized. But by the end of this video, I hope I can change that feeling and get you as excited as I am.
Also, you fucking motherfuckers are just right up there with me. Like 1,000 of you left the moment I switched over to some science shit. Okay, so that's the other thing. It's not just me. I'm not alone. It's like you motherfuckers are the same. You're like, oh, he's not talking about politics. I'm done. I'm done. I'm not in this.
About the potential of this technology. If we, as a civilization, actually pull it off and invent a cost-effective nuclear fusion power plant, it would change the face of society. Clean, safe fuels will allow every country in the world to benefit from this technology, allowing countries around the world to be energy independent, preventing one of the leading causes of conflicts around the world as we fight for control of energy sources. Cheap, reliable, and abundant energy is the foundation of every sci-fi utopian society. It would solve our issues with climate change, allow us to electrify industries that require fossil fuels like steel smelting, allow us to create entirely new industries that have been held back by energy costs like water desalination, providing the world with fresh, clean water to irrigate our lands and turn barren wastelands to fertile pastures, ushering in an era of clean, safe abundance, a utopian future that has been dreamed of for decades.
Okay.
Nuclear fusion experiments have been
same.
underway since the very earliest years of the Cold War, with the first generators firing up in the 1950s in both the USA and USSR. The Soviet Union approached the problem with the tokamak design, while the Americans used a slightly different approach, the stellarator. Each design attempts to solve the same problem. Fusion, in essence, isn't terribly complicated. We can make new elements by combining smaller elements, and in the process, release a lot of energy. However, to successfully combine elements, we need to overcome the electromagnetic repulsion like pushing two north poles of a magnet together. Atoms will repel each other. In order to force them together, we need to input a tremendous amount of energy. But we can't just grab individual atoms and force them together like magnets. Instead, we need to create a plasma, essentially a cloud of charged ions, which, thanks to their charge, can be manipulated by a magnetic field. We can then confine the plasma with a magnetic field, preventing the ions from hitting the fusion generator walls, and gradually raise its temperature to extremely high temperatures that would otherwise melt every solid material in the universe. Raising the temperature of the plasma causes the ions to move faster and faster, raising the ions' kinetic energy so high that their speed alone allows them to punch through the electromagnetic repulsion and collide. Both of these designs, the tokamak—
Bro, they should have just got me to do it, bro. I would just fucking grab them and slap them together. You know what I mean? I can do that with magnets. I could do that with fucking ions too. I'm built differently though. It's kind of dumb, you know, whatever. Kind of silly that they, my man said this video is outdated. Brother, it's from 3 days ago.
and Stellarator use slightly different methods of magnetic field confinement, generated by massive superconducting magnets to achieve fusion. The tokamak became the leading design today as a result of a release of information from the USSR on the tokamak design in 1968, which showed a tremendous jump in energy efficiency. However, both designs use the same fuels. The exact reactants we use have a huge effect on how much energy we need to put in and what we get out at the end. Most reactions use two isotopes of hydrogen. A regular, run-of-the-mill hydrogen has one proton in its nucleus with one electron in orbit. We could perform fusion with this kind of hydrogen, but the energy we can extract out of the reaction is very low. Instead, we frequently combine deuterium and tritium together, where hydrogen normally has one proton and one electron and no neutrons. Deuterium has one proton, one electron, and one neutron, while tritium has one proton, one electron, and two neutrons. This combination is used for a couple of reasons. First, it has the largest probability of giving us the exact result we want. Other reactions, like a regular hydrogen-to-hydrogen reaction, have a very high probability of creating helium-2, which is unstable and almost instantly decays into two regular hydrogens again and releases very little energy in the process. They have a lower probability of combining to form deuterium, the reaction we actually want, which then go on to fuse to form helium-3 and finally helium-4. This is the reaction chain that powers the sun, but
I could do helium-6, dude. That's me.
But the sun has an unfathomable amount of particles, making the probability issue completely irrelevant, and the crushing gravity needed to create the conditions needed for fusion. We need to supply those particles and the energy needed to combine them ourselves.
Yeah.
And if we can't extract more energy than we put in,
built so
that's just a
differently.
science experiment, not an energy source. We have successfully created many fusion reactions here on Earth. In fact, I witnessed the bright pink flashes of fusion myself while visiting Helion recently.
Wait, why was that censored? Damn. He won't show us any of the sexy stuff, dude. I can't believe he blurred it. What, dude? What? I can't jerk off to the fucking, you know, the particle collider or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry. Can't stop me from imagining what it looks like, what that sexy ass particle banger looks like. Okay, I'm thinking about particles. I'm thinking about particles smashing. Can't stop me. You're sick, man. Sorry. Oh, yeah.
We know how to achieve fusion. The problem we are now trying to solve is lowering the energy we need to input while maximizing the energy we can extract. So, step 1, we need fuels that require less energy input that release more energy. That's where deuterium and tritium come in. When combined, they have a very high probability of creating helium-4 and release, on average, 17.6 mega-electron volts for each and every fusion event. For comparison, uranium-235 produces 11.4 times this energy for each fission event. But on a mass basis, that deuterium-tritium fusion reaction releases over 4 times as much energy as uranium fission and produces no dangerous radioactive products.
My horny ass could not be a particle physicist. Same, dude. That's why he wanted to keep your eyes on the prize and not show you that sexy ass machine.
Helium is actually quite a useful byproduct, being used to cool MRI machine superconducting magnets, to fill rocket tanks after their propellant has been expended to prevent them from exploding, and occasionally to make your voice sound like Wendover Productions from 6 years ago.
Thanks, Real Engineering. Be sure to go check out and subscribe to Real Engineering's channel.
And we will eventually run out of the gas, so having a way to make it ourselves would be a nice backup. Deuterium is fairly common on Earth, occurring naturally in seawater, making up about 0.02% of hydrogen in seawater. And because deuterium has an extra neutron, it makes that water molecule heavier, giving its name, heavy water. That difference allows us to separate it through a number of means. Vacuum distillation allows us to take advantage of heavy water's higher boiling point, while the Girdler sulfide process separates heavy water through chemical reactions. We can then simply electrolyze the heavy water to separate the deuterium. However, one of the issues facing nuclear fusion is the rarity of tritium. Our primary source of tritium is nuclear reactor moderator pools, which are often filled with heavy water. These pools are designed to absorb the high-energy neutrons given off during nuclear fusion, and in doing so, they can become tritium, a hydrogen with 2 neutrons. This source of tritium is becoming less prevalent as nuclear power plants are gradually being shut down around the world due to competition from cheaper forms of electricity. Currently, total global reserves of tritium are estimated at...
Okay, but I want to get to like the... Wait, oh, this is actually not related to the new information that came out, I think. It's just talking about what like the issues are. Damn, really impressive timing. This video clearly took a long time to make and you managed to release it right on the heels of a major fusion announcement. Yeah, what does Real Engineering know? What does he know that he fucking released this literally a day before this new breakthrough? Supposedly, you know what I'm saying? Well, I guess there wasn't really a major breakthrough.
Known as first light fusion, and it works on the principle of essentially shooting something really fast inside a hydrogen pellet in order to then initiate a hydrogen fusion reaction. In other words, by having some kind of a turret pointed at a tiny pellet of hydrogen, you can use a simple railgun setup to fire a projectile at extremely fast hypersonic speeds.
Yeah,
which, when
this is
colliding
what
with the
I
pellet,
know.
will generate specifically
Yes.
timed collapsing shockwaves, creating the necessary pressure levels to initiate nuclear reaction. And in this case, it can actually reach speeds of about 70 kilometers per second, compressing the tiny pellets from just a few millimeters down to just a few microns, which basically then initiates the fusion. All this was demonstrated a few months ago, and it does seem to work, but it obviously has not achieved what's known as ignition, or basically producing more energy than was being put from the outside. And then we have that third technology, the one that uses lasers. Although similarly, just like with the gun and pellet technology, it uses what's known as inertial confinement, where basically outside pressure causes the fusion to start as opposed to being started by something like a magnetic force, such as in tokamaks. And so how does this exactly work? Well, if you want to learn the details, check out the previous video in the description that actually does explain it pretty well, but in a nutshell, you still have some kind of a pellet. A pellet that's going to be creating the necessary energy. But this pellet has to be placed inside a room surrounded by approximately 200 lasers. In this case, 192 to be precise. And actually the pellet itself also has to be inside one of these things in order to make the actual reaction more efficient and in order to prevent any potential abnormalities. Once again, the video in the description explains what this is used for. And so then all of those 192 lasers start to shine at the pellet, producing a massive amount of X-rays on the inside, which will then initiate the reaction on the outside of the pellet, and the resulting shockwave will make it shrink and contract, causing extreme pressures on the inside. Here's what some of this looks like as the reaction starts. And so this only lasts a few nanoseconds, but it basically results in a tiny nuclear explosion as all of the atoms on the inside combine into a much heavier atom. Although what this image shows you is that even a tiny abnormality can actually create major inefficiencies on the inside, which means that all of those lasers...
Thank you, No Puss. Wow, for the 10 gifted subs. Look, the point is they fucking shoot lasers and those particles get together and fuck, okay? They otherwise can't get together, kind of like fucking... They have their own force, so they don't want to get together. It's like two magnets, okay? So this laser that they shoot into it makes it fucking go so fast that it just fucking hits each other, smashes, and then they turn into one. And then in the process of that, you get energy, okay? That's it. That is what they're saying. But you're insane. I mean, that's it. That is what it is. For an ape like me, that's the best way to describe it. Shut your poli-sci ass up. Hey, dumbass. The entire community, with like notable exceptions, is also political science dumbasses like me. That's why they have a million fucking takes on how wrong I am about like art and AI art, but zero takes on this, with the exception of like notable chatters that are being like, I'm really into politics, but you're fucking this one up right now. Okay, so yes, I do need to fucking explain it in like himbo terms.
and everything in between them has to be perfectly calibrated to create a kind of equal distribution of energy, and even the pellet itself has to be basically a perfect sphere. But ultimately, if everything goes well, the lasers focus in the middle, the pellet explodes, and releases a huge amount of energy. And well, the huge breakthrough last year, in August of 2022, was the ability of the pellet to release approximately 1.3 megajoules of energy, which represented about 70% of the total input. And this was of course a pretty big technological achievement, but obviously, even though it was a breakthrough, there were still quite a lot of problems. And the major problem actually started to only appear a few months afterwards. The problem was trying to recreate this. Several other labs tried to recreate these conditions using relatively similar setup, but were not nearly as successful and could not even achieve half of this energy, which was an important indication that this technology is still really difficult to recreate, or that this technique is still very unpredictable. Even a minute change somewhere, or a potential imperfection in one of the lasers, or maybe even in the pellet itself, can...
The NPR really did manage to summarize this video. Yeah, that's what I learned this from, not from these videos, but it's literally from NPR. Up First did a really good job of fucking describing this. And then also talking about how it wasn't as big of a scientific breakthrough as people are claiming it is, because there's still no way, we are still like at least a decade out from like being able to utilize this consistently. And then also simultaneously talked about how it's actually good for weapons testing capabilities as well. So that's how I learned about it and freaked out a little bit. It's costly money-wise. It won't be commercialized for a very long time. It's not gonna save us from climate change. We need to save ourselves first, but it's an important step. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna fucking sit here and act like new technological achievements like this is not a bad thing. Obviously it's a good thing. We are a long ways out from it, but
dramatically dropped the total output. And so even though NIF was able to achieve this, this was just a one-off event, which meant that it was still
this was developed for weapons testing, yes. And chatters were actually saying that that's not true, but they openly stated that originally.
very far from being potentially useful.
Right?
I mean,
something about like how outdated our nuclear weapons are because we can't really test them adequately, but this is like one way that you can do
once,
it.
and
right?
was not recreated by anyone else. And also, just look at the sheer size of this facility. The facility itself is huge and requires quite a lot of energy just to function and just to conduct these experiments, with most of the energy actually being wasted on the power amplification inside these 200 different lasers. But now, just a year and a half later, they've reported an even higher achievement, in this case finally achieving the symbolic ignition, by introducing approximately 2 megajoules of energy.
Nuclear reactors for power originally for submarines. There's the vid where they mention how important this is for national security or some shit. Yes, this allows us to test without detonating nukes underground. That's also a way to justify scientific funding for Congress. I know, but I'm saying that it's not just for unique ways of developing energy, but also the first thing we do with any technology is weapons test it. If you don't recognize that, you're a fucking imbecile. I mean, can I recognize that and then also say that, like, I wish that that wasn't the ultimate goal or the only big usage of that or the most common way to utilize it? Or am I a little brain person? I guess I'm little brain because I... Anyway, regardless, maybe Bill Nye will help us make sense of this a little bit better.
And by all accounts, they've gotten more heat out than they put in. And this is amazing. And there's, as far as I know in the reporting the last few days, no one's mentioned that Enrique Fermi and his colleagues in the University of Chicago did the first chain reaction, which led to all the nuclear power plants we have now.
Yeah.
On December 2nd, 1942.
Okay.
So it's quite a little chin stroke that it's very close to 80 years later to the day that this breakthrough occurred. And so you guys, if this would work,
yeah,
if this is a harbinger, if this is really the beginning of something huge, it would change the world.
Thank you for explaining that to Allison.
No. I mean,
you so
I was
much.
going to say all of that, but Bill Weir, tell us what we need to know.
Bill
In
just
addition to
did.
that- in addition to
Anyone
that.
over with dates at the band? No, it's a star in a box. This is the whole idea. This is why nuclear physicists have been salivating on this idea forever. It's taking a star and putting it in a box on Earth and tapping that energy that goes forever. It's what Iron Man has in his chest, okay?
Now we understand.
It's this endless clean energy machine, and the appeal of it is you don't have any nuclear waste, there's no fallouts, there's no accidents. We don't have to drill or mine for fuel anymore because the fuel is seawater. We have 30
Yeah, we're just shooting lasers into seawater
million
particles.
years of seawater, theoretically, to feed these machines. But what Bill was describing there, these 200 lasers aimed at what is essentially a peppercorn of hydrogen, a long way from there to where you can plug in your house to this stuff. This is for our grandkids, probably, as a meaningful technology. Bill, maybe you're more optimistic than I am about how fast this takes. In the meantime, there's all this incredible breakthroughs that are happening with wind and solar, and more will go online in the next 5 years. It went online in the last 20. So it'll be interesting to see how this news is received by those who say we should be putting our billions of dollars into the technology we know works today and getting off of oil and gas ASAP, and then maybe saving life as we know it before we go for these amazing moonshots. But at the same time, the promise of this, private money is going to chase public after this, and so this could be a brave new world.
Bill, do you think that it could be in our grandchildren's lifetime? Could it be conceivably sooner?
Absolutely. I mean, so I just think about how quickly people went from discovering chain reactions, the Sizzler crossing
For those of you for those of you who were fucking saying this is not a weapon, so here's what it was. NIF was not designed to be efficient. It was designed to be the biggest laser we could possibly build to give us data we need for the nuclear stockpile research program. So the original reason for this project was their nuclear stockpile research program and to keep their weapons up to date without like actively testing them, right? On top of the soil. To achieve ignition, NIF scientists made multiple changes before the latest laser shot based in part on analysis and computer modeling. They boosted the laser power by 8%. They created a target with fewer imperfections and adjusted how they delivered the laser energy to create a more spherical implosion. Scientists knew they were operating at the cusp of fusion ignition. And in that regime, little changes can make a big difference. Why are these results significant? It's a milestone because it has, for the first time, yielded 54% more energy as output than what they put in. But of course, the way to power it is still not necessarily like clean. NIF was not designed with commercial fusion energy in mind, and many researchers doubt that the laser-driven fusion will be the approach that ultimately yields fusion energy. But the success could boost confidence in the promise of laser fusion power and open the door to a program focused on energy applications. This is absolutely necessary to have credibility to sell an energy program. Okay. The fossil fuel lobby doesn't exist. Man, this is not like a fossil fuel lobby talk. I mean, fossil fuel lobby might be talking about this, but you know, ultimately this is the scientists saying it. You know what I mean? Like the scientists like, yeah, we were using this for our nuclear weapons stockpile that we're testing. I mean, that doesn't change the reality that this is cool and you should be excited about it. Just like the top of the hour ad break is something that many are excited about at the top of every hour when there's a 3-minute ad break because they're already subscribed. Like they know it's coming. They don't give a shit. But some of you are not subscribed and you will see the 3-minute ad break and you probably aren't excited about it. Okay? But fear not, you can avoid those ads as long as you subscribe for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime or by getting gifted a sub. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. Jib Jab, thank you for the 5. Get the subs, allowing 5 people to no longer see the ads. The efficiency of the yield, the energy released compared to the energy that goes into producing the laser pulses needs to grow by at least 2 orders of magnitude. Sufficient fusion energy producing events, repeated performance would be a major milestone of interest. So they have to like repeat it. This is there's another collaboration project between China, the European Union, India, Japan, Korea, Russia, and the US, which aims to achieve self-sustaining fusion, meaning that the energy from fusion produces more fusion through a different technique from NIF's inertial confinement approach. ITER will keep a plasma of deuterium and tritium confined in a toroidal vacuum chamber or tokamak and heat it up until the nuclei fuse. When it starts doing so in 2035, it will aim to reach burning stage, Luce explains, where the self-heating power is a dominant source of heating. So 2035 is the year where we all die. Okay. There's just a big gay bomb.
So, fusion is an essential process in modern nuclear weapons, and fusion also has the potential for abundant clean energy. As you have heard, and we'll hear more, the breakthrough at NIF does have ramifications for clean energy. More immediately, this achievement will advance our national security in at least 3 ways. First, it will lead to laboratory experiments that help NNSA defense programs continue to maintain confidence in our deterrent without nuclear explosive testing. Second, it underpins the credibility of our deterrent by demonstrating world-leading expertise in weapons-relevant technologies. That is, we know what we're doing. Third, continuing to assure our allies that we know what we're doing and continuing to avoid testing will advance our non-proliferation goals, also increasing our national security.
Wait, so like it simultaneously advances their proliferation goals, okay, but it's like technically not without actually testing their nuclear weapons capabilities, but it also advances their non-proliferation goals because they no longer have to make new nukes because they already have the old nukes and they can test them this way. That's weird. Anyway, I don't understand it. It's too much nerd shit, too much science shit. Speaking of too much nerd shit and science shit, okay, we're done with that portion. FTX founder Sam Bankman